Welcome back to Ask the Attorneys. Today's topic is estate planning trends and taxes as we head into the new year of 2021. And once again, I'm joined by Attorney Matthew Underwood. And Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Tom. It's always great to talk about these estate planning topics.
Yeah, so the beginning of the new year, Matt, historically, traditionally, is a time I see many people think about their own affairs, think about their estate planning. Maybe they have an estate plan in place, an old plan, and they think about updating it, or maybe they have no plan at all. And after all of us have lived through 2020, a global pandemic in 2020, I think, if anything, the last year has shown us all just how uh, fragile life can be. So, planning is always an important topic, but as we head into 2021, I think planning is on a lot of people's minds. But today, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what we're seeing in the estate planning world as we head into the new year, including some of the current estate and gift tax limits, and maybe things people should be thinking about during the pandemic as they're doing their planning. So
Mhm.
I thought we'd start off maybe in general with um, Wisconsin, how Wisconsin works with federal estate tax. Does Wisconsin have an estate tax? I know I get that question uh, quite a bit. And so, Matt, maybe you want to fill us in about that. Does Wisconsin have an estate tax?
Yeah, good question. And this comes up quite a bit because some people know of estate tax as death taxes. So a lot of people heard the term death taxes, and that sounds, quite scary. Why is the government stepping in when somebody passes away and trying to collect money? So this is something that is on a lot of our clients' minds. But there's really two parts to the estate tax. One part is the federal estate tax. And so that the federal estate tax applies to, anyone in the United States. It doesn't matter what state they live in. And, that federal estate tax exemption limit is $11.7 million. So that means you don't really have to worry about federal estate tax unless you have more than 11.7 million. And if you're a married couple, you get to combine your exemptions. So you can have, over $22 million as a married couple and not worry about estate tax. So that's the federal level. As far as the state estate tax is concerned, Wisconsin actually doesn't have an estate tax. And so the state of Wisconsin isn't going to try to collect estate tax. There isn't an estate tax here, but you might still have one at the federal level if you're over that estate tax exemption. So when I talk to clients about the level of our exemption, over $10 million, a lot of our clients kind of chuckle because they say, well, we don't have to worry about that. We're well under that amount. But that number could always change. Our elected officials have the ability to change the tax law and reduce that exemption. So just because we're not concerned about it today with some of our clients doesn't mean we have to that we can't be concerned about it later. I mean, if laws change, if our client situation changes, then we might have more of our clients faced with the estate tax. But I guess, are you hearing that same sort of feedback from your clients, or a lot of clients concerned about that tax issue?
Yeah, I agree, Matt. Sometimes people come in and have heard about a death tax or an estate tax, and usually it's a big relief when I can tell them Wisconsin doesn't have its own estate tax. And then when I tell them the federal level is currently above 11 million, for most of my, middle class clients, that's a quite generous exemption for their estate. So they don't have to worry about that so much anymore. But I recall just a few years ago when I was in law school, the exemption was something more like 3 million. So we're historically at quite high levels due to the last tax reform package, which was passed in 2018. And if you look over history, I don't know if these high levels will last. Uh, they've been high the last couple of years, but it remains to be seen. They're currently, the law says they're going to sunset in 2025 and go back to like the 2008 levels, which was around 5 million. So it's still a generous exemption level. I don't want people to get too worried. But Matt's point, what we like to do is try to plan for the present. But I always tell people if we're doing some trust planning and they're anywhere getting close to that federal limit, I try to build in some flexibility in their trust plan in case that limit does come down in the future. And that's the great thing about a trust plan is, if it dramatically changed, we could make some changes inside the trust to adjust for that change in the estate tax level. But overall, I think for a lot of clients, the main concern is that there is this estate tax that gets applied to every dollar of their estate when they pass away. And for a lot of middle class people, that isn't the case. The more thing I would say they have to worry about is the tax is really the probate court fees and expenses that are going to eat away at the estate rather than what we actually call a federal tax. Now, if you're close to that federal tax, you do want to plan for it because it kicks in at a 40% rate. So over that 11.7 million, it's not like the income tax where, it starts at 10% and goes to 12 on your income. So the 40% rate over that amount is quite significant. And that's why people who have heard about estate taxes are generally very aware that it's a significant tax if you have to pay it. So the other thing, Matt, I get asked often is, along with does Wisconsin have a death tax, is how much can I give away per year tax-free? Something like that. How much can I give away without paying tax? And it's generally because they've heard somewhere there's an amount each year they can give to someone without a gift tax. So do you want to talk a little bit about that level for this year?
Sure, Tom. So just in general, the gift tax is in place. So, people don't avoid the estate tax. And what I mean by that is, if I pass away and I own some wealth, that wealth is potentially subject to the estate tax. And so if I'm smart, I would say, you know what, I'm just going to give away my property today. And that way, when I pass away, I won't own anything and I won't have to be faced with estate tax. But, the IRS is aware that I might try to do that. So the IRS says, well, you know what, if you try to give away all your wealth during your lifetime, we're going to hit you with that gift tax. So you can't get out of this one. So, the thing is that there's some exemptions that we can look at for the gift tax. And so basically you have a $15,000 exemption where you can give $15,000 to any particular individual and you won't have to report that to the IRS. So, and what that means is, let's say you have 3 beneficiaries, you want each of them to receive 15,000. You can actually give 15,000 to each of those beneficiaries, or a total of 45,000, and you won't have to report that to the IRS or worry about gift taxes. And if you're married, you and your spouse can combine your exemptions, and now together you can give $30,000 to any particular individual. So when we talk about that, some of our clients might want to gift because they truly want to start getting some assets out of their name, or maybe they just want to gift some property to kids, grandkids, help them, with a down payment on a house, help them with a wedding or school loans. So those are some different reasons to look at gifting. But if you're under that 15,000, you really don't have to worry about any sort of reporting. If you're over 15,000, then we end up filing a gift tax return. And then we have to look at your lifetime exemptions, which, without getting too complicated, are, match that estate tax exemption of 11.7 million. But even if we go over that number and we're filing a gift tax return, it doesn't mean you're necessarily paying gift tax yet. So
Right.
that's where, if you're thinking about making a large gift, talk to your attorney first, talk to your CPA, and just make sure you fully understand all the consequences, because there might be better ways to accomplish your goal rather than giving an outright gift. But that's where your professionals can help you with the best way to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And that 15,000, thank you, Matt, is often the number they're looking for. That changes too. A couple of years ago, it was 14,000. The IRS bumps it up every couple of years. They'll announce that rate. So for 2021, it's staying at the same as 2020, 15,000 per year per person. And like Matt said, the great thing is you don't have to file a gift tax return if you make that gift. So if you write that $15,000 check to a child, just keep a copy of the check, but you don't have to file the gift tax return. But if you gifted them $16,000, that would trigger the requirement to file the gift tax return. And like Matt said, it doesn't mean you necessarily would owe any tax. It's just you would have to reduce your overall lifetime exemption by the amount of that gift. So that's why, Matt, I sometimes point out why the planning to leave gifts at death is so important, because this is an opportunity to leave those assets to the next generation. And without, if you're under the 11.7 limit, without an estate tax, and they can get the property at an advantageous tax basis as well. And that's what we call the step up in basis, or the new basis at death rule that's currently in place. So if you have a asset that's appreciated over the years, which is often the case with real estate, for example, like let's say a home you bought in 1980 for $100,000, and then you pass away in 2021 and now it's worth $300,000. Well, if you gave that home to your child right before death, the month before you died, they would take your basis in the property, which is generally the price you paid to acquire it. So 100,000. But instead, if you leave it to them at death, they can get what we call new basis at death, meaning they get it appraised at the value as the date of death. And if they are turning around and selling the home for 300,000, then they potentially owe no capital gains tax on the sale. So that's a really powerful reason why I think a lot of the planning with estate planning is important, because for many folks, even if the estate tax isn't an issue for them, that capital gains tax on appreciated assets after they're gone can be a big deal, and one they maybe didn't think about.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. I think the general message is we don't expect our clients to be experts in all this, because one reason it's just there's a lot of different moving parts to this, but also these laws are changing over time. So we really focus our careers and our expertise on keeping up to date on these topics. So that's why we want to be the experts in that, so our clients don't have to keep up to date on all these law changes. But it's these reasons where work closely with your estate planning attorney, because what we set up for you today may not be the way that will set that things will be in 10 years, because we might need to make changes over time based on tax laws or whatever it might be. So it's important to do that. But one other thing I'll mention, Tom, and when we're talking about trends for 2021, and this doesn't have to do with tax laws, but the trend towards online meetings is very important, because estate planning is easier than ever to get done, and you can do most of your estate planning without ever having to leave your house. So both Tom and I, we offer Zoom meetings to our clients. So please take advantage of that if your attorney offers meetings, so you don't have to make a trip to the office or worry about COVID. We can do things electronically as much as we can. And so I think estate planning is easier than ever nowadays. So we really want people to take advantage of these new tools that we have out there, and connect with your attorney and get some good planning in place.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Another trend, Matt, in 2021 that I don't see going away is the virtual meetings. And that's been a big positive, one positive from the pandemic, which has had a lot of negatives, right? But the increased adoption of technology, I'm seeing the same thing. Many clients now are well aware of what a Zoom is, how to do a Zoom meeting, and other tools as well, but it's made it very easy. And they can have this meeting just like you and I are talking today, and we're 100 miles away from each other, but we still get to have that face-to-face interaction, a real live meeting, and no chance of germ transmission during the pandemic. So it's a great way you can meet with your attorney and get things rolling with your estate planning. And I think it's going to continue in 2021, and people should just embrace it, take advantage of it as we move forward.
Absolutely, Tom. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the year going forward. But I think that's what we do. We monitor law changes, make sure things are up to date, and in that way we can help our clients, make things easier for our clients, and make sure they have the best planning in place.
Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.